All right, traders, let's start the fun stuff with Pine Script, which is, of course, strategy code. Hey traders, this lesson is taken out of my Pine Script mastery course. It's a lesson I re-recorded for version 6 of Pine Script, where a few things have changed. This lesson explains the basic strategy functions for someone who's new to Pine Script. So if you're not new to Pine Script, you might want to skip this video. But if you are new to Pine Script, this video will give you a sneak peek into what's in the mastery course and the kind of content I teach in there. In this lesson, I'll explain the key functions we'll be using to execute through the strategy tester. The strategy we're using today is just a example dummy strategy. It's taken 553 trades, but we don't have any position sizing and we're not doing any of that. We're just entering and exiting positions with one contract. We're just going long and short on engulfing candles, and it's a very simple script just to demonstrate the concepts here. And in future lessons, we'll build on this material and actually build out practical scripts using this template sort of code. So to start with, we need to create a strategy script. I want this drawing over price, so we'll set overlay to true so that we can see our profit targets and so on. I'm importing my Zen library. The current version as of recording this is 9. I'm importing this library because I can use these functions here to detect bullish and bearish engulfing candles without cluttering up my script with a whole bunch of unrelated code to this lesson. You could remove this import and replace this with some sort of candlestick pattern that you like to trade. That could be a good sort of homework project for those of you who are new to Pine Script. Replace these with your own candlestick detection. But for now, I'm going to keep this really simple. We're detecting bullish and bearish engulfing candles, really basic candlestick patterns using my Zen library. Saves me writing a whole bunch of code to detect those patterns. That pattern code is included in the library. That's the point of having a library. So that's why I'm using it, and that's a good example of why you would use libraries. So we have some user inputs. I'll have a quick look. We have our look back for swing low and highs, our ATR multiplier for our take profit and stop loss, and our risk reward. If I change this to 2 to 1, then our profit target will move double the distance from our entry, but our stop loss remains the same. That's our risk reward multiplier. So really simple script here, but it will demonstrate some key concepts and show you how to use some core strategy functions. So the first thing I'm doing is getting the current standard 14 period ATR value. This gives us a reading on price volatility. It's generally a good idea to adapt your stop loss and take profit based on recent volatility. We're detecting the candlestick patterns. We're assigning these to Boolean values. And just to make things really clear, let me explicitly define the types of all of these variables. It'll make it a little bit easier for you guys to understand what's happening here. You don't have to do this, but I like to do this, especially since the Pine editor got a major overhaul and we have this really good color coding now. So these will also be Booleans and these will all be floats. There we go, that will do. So these are two Boolean values, bull engulfing candle and bear engulfing candle. These will only be true if that candlestick pattern is detected. The next thing we are doing is getting our recent swing high and low using the ta.highest and ta.lowest function. We're getting the highest high over our look back and the lowest low over our look back, which is our user setting up here, 7 bars by default. Next up, we're detecting our buy and sell signals with some basic filters. So for a buy signal, we need a bullish engulfing candle. We need the current bar's low to be the lowest low over the past 7 bars. So the current bar's low must equal this value. And let me make one extra change to this. I'll create a new Boolean value here called Boolean shared filters. And this Boolean value will contain the conditions we need to enter any trade, whether it be long or short. So the first thing we need is that the ATR value is not NA. NA means not a number, and because we have a 14 period ATR value, for the first 13 bars on our chart, this value will be NA because it doesn't have enough price data to actually calculate its value. And what happens there is, if we open a trade in the first 13 bars, if this is true in the first 13 bars, but our ATR value is NA because we don't have enough price action to calculate the value, we will open a trade with an NA take profit and stop loss, which means it will never close. And so one way around that, and a good practice to get into, is to make sure that the indicator values you're working with are not NA before you even consider opening a trade. So for shared filters, we'll say, make sure the ATR is not NA, and make sure that our position size is equal to 0. That means we are flat, we have no open trades. And bar state.isConfirmed will mean that we only enter trades when the bar closes, and if our script is running in real time and our conditions are met, the trade will not enter until that bar closes with all of our conditions met. And now I can take this Boolean value and paste it at the end of our conditions here and tidy up our script a little bit, make it a bit easier to read. A good rule of thumb is if you can make your script easy to read, just do it. Don't worry about writing the least amount of code possible, just make the code really easy to read. Believe me, you'll thank me later for that advice, especially when you're working with really complex scripts and you come back to them months or years after you've written them. Making the code as easy to read as possible will save you a lot of headache trying to figure out what you're trying to do with those older scripts. Or if you give this code to someone else to read, they'll be very easily able to understand what you're trying to do. So shared filters, again, let's reiterate. We're checking that the ATR value has a number. It is not NA. If it is NA, that means we do not have an ATR value. We don't want to place any trades. And we must be flat. We must have no open positions. Technically, you can turn this off here. You can just set this to 1, but I like to hard code and explicitly say in my code, I want to be flat. I want no trades open. If I'm pyramiding, then that's different, but that's obviously advanced. We'll get into that in future lessons. And then finally, I only want to open trades when the bar state is confirmed. That means this is only true on the final tick of a real-time bar. So as soon as the current bar closes and my script executes, if all of our conditions are met, we will enter a long or short trade, assuming these other conditions are met. So for a buy signal to be true, we need a bullish engulfing candle. We need that candle to be the lowest low over our recent price action, and our shared filters to be true. Same for sell signals. Then we calculate our stops and targets. We are subtracting the ATR multiplied by this value, so 1 ATR by default, from the recent low for our long stop. And for short trades, we are adding that value to the recent swing high to get our stop loss. Then we are calculating the distance of our stop loss in pips so that we can then calculate our risk reward. So first we get our long stop and short stop values. Then we calculate the distance from the current closing price to that stop loss for both long and short trades. And then we are calculating our target price by adding that distance to the entry price multiplied by our risk reward profile. So if I set this to 2, we'll have a 2 ATR distance from the swing low and swing high of our entry, and our take profit will remain 1-to-1. If I set risk reward to 2, then we have a 2 ATR stop loss with a 2-to-1 risk reward, as you can see there. The next thing we need to do, if we're going to be entering and exiting trades using fixed stop loss and fixed take profit orders, we need to actually save those price values in order to feed that value into our exit functions, which are down here. So what we do is when our buy signal is met, so the conditions for buying our market are met, we enter our trade using the strategy.entry function. We give it an ID, a trade ID. So in this case, that'll just be long. I could also say buy here or whatever you want. Trade 1. It doesn't matter. It's up to you what you call this. Just make it something that's obvious and easy to understand. We also need to specify a direction. If we don't specify any of the other parameters, they'll all use the default values, which is typically fine. Now, if we're using a buy limit or buy stop order, you would specify the buy limit and stop price. I won't do that in this video because it will just add too much complexity. We'll do that in a future video, in its own standalone video. For now, we'll focus on just entering at market when our buy or sell conditions are met. So here we've got a bullish engulfing candle, which is the swing low over recent price action. On the next bar's open, we enter our trade with our stop loss and take profit. When we do that, we save our stop loss and our take profit into these VAR variables. Now remember, VAR variables do not reset on every new bar that our script executes on. These values are saved until we override them. So when a buy signal is generated, we set T_stop to long stop. Remember, this value is updated on every new bar. So this value is constantly changing. And if I plot this value, long stop. If we plot that on our chart, you can see this blue line represents our long stop loss on every single bar. It's updated on every single bar, including the signal bar. But when this signal bar is generated, this red line saves whatever that blue line was at the time. So using the VAR keyword, we tell Pine Script, don't update this value on every new bar. Keep it as whatever we set it to. Same with our target. And we use this same variable for long and short trades. Because we can't have a long and a short trade open at the same time, there's no reason to have separate take profit and stop losses. We can use the same two variables to track both long and short trade stops and targets. And then we pass these values into our strategy.exit function. So this function here executes on every single bar on our chart. It will only run if we have a trade open, and we tell it which trades to manage using the from entry parameter. So if I had different take profits and stop losses for long and short trades, I would pass the corresponding stop loss and take profit into these values here. Limit is profit limit target. Stop is stop loss. And these are price values. If you wanted to specify your stop loss in ticks, you would use profit. So profit equals 10 would be set the profit target 10 ticks or 1 pip away. And loss is the pip based or tick based stop loss value. So this is how many ticks away from the entry price. I personally prefer to work with fixed price targets, but that's a matter of preference and what you're used to. So I'm going to stick with price targets for now. And if we look at our chart here, let's have a look at some trades. So here we enter on the next bar's open once our signal setup bar is detected. We have our fixed take profit and stop loss. Right here, our stop loss is hit, and you can see we exit the trade on that purple arrow there, and the trade gets logged into the strategy tester. Let's look for a profitable trade. Here we go. Here's a long trade that hit our take profit, and here is a short trade that hit our take profit. Now, I won't go into the strategy settings here, but you can obviously play around with these. For example, we could have slippage. If I throw in a 10 tick slippage, let's make it 100 to make it more obvious. If I turn that on there and look for a losing trade, here you can see that our stop loss was exceeded by 10 pips. So this is a good way to be conservative with your testing and see how slippage would affect your system. I don't love the way TradingView do this because you're never really going to have a fixed slippage. It's random. Slippage is random. So I prefer to code slippage myself in my scripts. That's quite advanced, so I won't show you how to do that today. But yeah, these you can play around with these. We also have commission, obviously, and contract size. If I bump this up to 10,000 units, you can see my order quantity change there, and we'll start getting some actual meaningful numbers in the strategy tester because our position size is not so tiny now. But anyway, that is how we enter and exit trades using a fixed stop loss and fixed take profit. Let me show you now how we could exit our trades using conditions. So if I uncomment all of this, and let's have a look at this code. So this code is almost identical. We still have our exit functions. This will ensure that our stop loss is placed. But notice that my take profit is now set to NA. That means I do not want to exit my trade with a fixed take profit, only a fixed stop loss. What this allows me to do is have a condition-based exit reason. So if I save my code here and my script updates, here's a good example. Here we enter short, we have our regular stop loss and our take profit is drawing here, but notice that our trade doesn't exit until down here. That's because I've changed the way my code exits trades. Let's focus on the short trade here. So this check is saying, if my position size is less than 0, I'll always be less than 0. That means I am short. So in Pine Script and TradingView Strategy Tester, a negative position size means a short position. So minus 10,000 units means I am short. I'm in a short trade. And now I can check, is the current price of this market lower than my take profit? So is the closing price lower than this line? If that's true, then I check, is the current bar, has it closed higher than our previous bar's high, such as in this case here? You can see that this is the very first bar to close higher than the previous bar's high, And on the next bar's open, we exit our short trade at market. That's what this check here does. I could also, and probably should also add, and bar state dot is confirmed. If I don't have this is confirmed check, and I'm running this script on real-time price action, if I had an open trade right now, then as soon as that current bar meets these conditions, then my trade would exit in real time. So typically, most traders will want to wait for that condition to be confirmed on a bar close. So don't forget to add this if you're doing forward testing. In back testing, it doesn't matter because every historical bar is confirmed as true on all historical bars. This only affects real-time bars. Remember, this will only be true, this inbuilt variable is confirmed, is only true on the final tick of the current bar. So on the bar close. So again, this only affects real-time bars, but I'll leave it in there for now, just to have a full example of how to add this. And obviously for long trades, it's the same, except we're looking for a positive position size. That means we are long, and our close must be above our long profit target since price is moving up, and the close must be lower than the previous low. That gives us this situation here, where we're waiting for a lower close, exit at next bar's open. And notice that the stop loss is still working as a fixed stop loss. So this is how I go about writing scripts which have price condition based exits, such as a trailing stop. A trailing stop is slightly different. For a trailing stop, you typically want to update this value so that your limit order stop loss is respected immediately, the same way a fixed stop loss is. You want, if we went short here and we had this trailing stop down to like here, you want that to be the exit price. However, there are some scripts where maybe you have a trailing stop, that comes down to here, and then you're waiting for that price to close above the trailing stop and then exit. That's where this function would come into play. We also have the strategy.closeAll function, which will do exactly the same thing, but it will close all open trades. So that's a lazy way to go about doing this. If you're only ever trading one position, long or short, you can just use this function to close out your trades. It does exactly the same thing. If you look closely, this is exactly the same situation. The only difference is this one explicitly tells Pine Script we want to exit the trade we opened with that ID. And that's pretty much it for the basic strategy function calls. I'm going to comment all of this out again. We have some drawing code at the end of the script. I won't go over this, it's outside the scope, but we're just plotting some shapes and we're plotting our stop loss and take profit. The way I managed to get this to break the line in between trades is I use the plot style of line break, line BR, and I check if our position size is not equal to 0, then I plot my stop loss and take profit. Otherwise, if my position size is 0, then I plot NA or nothing. If I were to change this to like 0, for example, then we'll get some weird behavior going on. There we go. Now you see what I'm talking about. If you don't put NA into the plot, then the line will go to 0. It's plotting all the way down to 0 there. So what we need to do to break up that plot is set this to NA when we're not in a trade. And then when we're using the plot style of line break, it will break the line as soon as that value becomes NA. That's how I like to draw my stops and targets. There are other ways you could do this. You could use lines, you could use shapes and boxes to have a gradient in the background and get all fancy like that. I like to keep things simple. I just plot a line. That's how I do it. Very simple. You'll find this in the majority of my scripts that use stop losses and take profits. So anyway, that'll do it for this lesson. I know it's a big information dump, but this is a good template to get started with placing and managing trades. With that said, I'll wrap this lesson up here. I'll speak with you in the next one, guys. Things will get a lot more interesting from here on out, so I hope you're excited for that. I hope you found this video interesting and helpful. If you did, please hit the subscribe button. I'll be back very soon with some new content. Check out my website for more free content and resources. Have a good one. I'll speak with you soon.